Yeah, Saudis don't queue. There's no such thing as a queuing system. It's literally every man for themselves. I think it was a very eye-opening, humbling, out-of-this-world experience. I'm fitter than I realised. Like, Umrah's not easy, but alhamdulillah, like, it didn't feel difficult. City-wise, I preferred Medina, but experience-wise, I preferred Mecca because of Umrah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, guys. We're having another podcast. We're thinking about our reflections after Umrah, which is like a small little pilgrimage to Mecca and Medina. Question 1: how was your Umrah?
Alhamdulillah, it was good. You don't realise how actually taxing it is. Like when you make Umrah and then you're like, I could do this again. Like a couple hours later, you're a bit mash up and you're like, I can't do it. But it was good. I enjoyed it. I think it was nice to finally see the Kaaba, to be in Mecca, to see the Sa'i, the mountains. It just sort of puts everything into perspective for you. I think it was a very eye-opening, humbling, out-of-this-world experience that was inside this world.
For me, Umrah was a time of sacrifice. By our time, our money. We spent quite a bit of time, like a week in Saudi Arabia. And what are you doing it for? You just need to remember the purpose is for Allah. Follow the footsteps of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Tell me one thing that you've learned from this trip about yourself.
I'm fitter than I realised. Like, Umrah's not easy, but alhamdulillah, like, it didn't feel difficult, which I'll put down to, like, our age.
I did think it would be a lot easier.
Yeah.
Because we're so young, I thought it would be like, oh, I can do like 3 Umrahs in a day.
But when we realised how hard it was, I still think we're quite fit for having completed that. That was difficult. But also, I was saying, like, I remember calling my dad and he was like, how's it going and everything? And I was just like to him, how did people do it without aircon?
Even, for example, when I was climbing the mountain, Jabal an-Nur, which is where the Prophet received revelation, that was a really hard journey up the mountain and it took me like 5 hours.
To put it in perspective, like, how old was the Prophet when he got revelation?
About 40.
And here we are struggling and we're not even like in our 30s. The mountains must have decreased in size now. So really,
and there was staircase as well.
You went up a B-Tech mountain.
What was one thing or some things that was unexpected in your journey? I think for me, if I was to do it again, I wouldn't put ihram on in Malaysia where we flew from. That was really hard. Kept thinking I was going to get really exposed at one point, especially when Rani was pushing me in the airport trolley and I had to hold my ihram, my linen cloth.
I didn't know this until we were buying ihram, but men are not allowed to wear any stitched clothing, which means underwear. Isaac and Virgil obviously were traveling in ihram and it's literally like a humongous bed sheet that goes around your waist and one around your shoulders. They're naked basically, so if it falls off, probably get arrested.
There were some people when they're trying to touch the black stone, their ihram was flying off them.
Not so much that it was flying off. People are a bit crazy. I think they're so desperate to touch the black stone that they're willing to do anything. So if that means that, you know, someone's closer to it than they are, like, they're pulling off each other's ihrams and throwing it in the air. To me, that was crazy. If you're doing that to get to the black stone, what does it really mean anyway?
I put it down to being overzealous.
But it's like, are you doing it for the right reasons then?
I mean, we tried to reach the black stone, me and Isaac, and it was just 15-20 minutes of pushing and shoving.
Yeah.
And eventually we just had to give up because Isaac's head was getting crushed by these adults.
Crushed? You never told me this.
And he would say, you know, you're hurting me. And these adults, they'd be like, I don't care, I'm gonna do it anyway. What are some things, 2 things that people should be wary of when traveling?
If you're traveling with kids, it's quite hot, so have a sun hat for them, sunscreen. Try and stay on the upper floors if you're doing tawaf. That's a bit long. We did go down and just do it normally, but Rania was quite funny. When it was getting too tight, she would just kick people and say, you're hurting me, and start screaming at people. But I think definitely consider if you're taking kids. If you are taking kids, would it be best if one person did tawaf while the other stayed with the kids and then you swapped out? Not even crushed, but it's just like there's a lot of people, and yes, there are like army people to regulate and things like that. You don't want to be the one whose kid is feeling overwhelmed.
Rania was really struggling. Fill up our water bottles and just keep giving her Zamzam water. But there are adults, for example, that also do struggle. There was a woman that was vomiting. Mecca or Medina, which did you prefer?
City-wise or experience-wise? City-wise, I preferred Medina, but experience-wise, I preferred Mecca because of Umrah. Whereas in Medina, I didn't really get to do much apart from obviously pray in the masjid, the Prophet's mosque. Definitely Mecca, but the city and the people, definitely Medina. Like the people in Mecca, I think they're just a bit, there's not really a lot of time for niceties.
I think one thing that surprised me about Mecca was there's a lot of mountains. there's like still hills.
Can you answer,
But
please?
in terms of Medina and
Mecca or Medina?
I would have to agree. I preferred Medina. Even though we spent less time there, the people were definitely nicer. It was more chilled out. It was a lot easier to...
I think also, like, as soon as you entered the city, there was like a state of, I can't explain it. It was like tranquility. It was just calm. As soon as you entered, vibes.
We didn't travel as a group. We traveled on our own as a family. How did you find that?
It was nice. We got to meet some of my family that live out there. So when we went, obviously we were met by family, pretty much took us everywhere. So it was nice actually connecting with them. It was the first time I'd ever met them or spoken to them, which is really why I like Somalis, because it can be like your first time and they're so hospitable, they're so caring. It was just really lovely to meet them. I think I preferred doing it the way we did it as opposed to going with a tour group, because I think with a tour group there's not really much control, whereas we got to decide when to go to Medina, where to stop off, what to eat, what to do. So it was more tailored around the kids. Like we were taking them to like soft plays and stuff as well. So I definitely preferred the freedom that came with doing it on your own. Obviously because of the 2030 vision, getting a tourist visa was so simple and entering the country was just super easy. So I think we also saved a lot of money as well.
I mean, I liked that we traveled independently. We got to see, for example, the suburb bits that a group wouldn't necessarily see. Like we went to the other mosques around Mecca. We got to speak to some of the locals. We got to kind of experience how they live. Quite blessed ourselves, and you realize how many different blessings you have when you talk to other people and their way of life.
But again, like control, we got to control when we went. It was cooler. It was just nicer.
I guess you would say that you strongly recommend someone knowledgeable that you would maybe guide you through your Umrah experience maybe once at least.
Yeah, I think for the first time, definitely. If you don't have anyone to show you, maybe go with a tour guide for the first time. But
I think for most people, they want to make kind of perfect. We felt that after we did our first Umrah, or a bit rushed.
And I think the second Umrah felt it felt better.
Felt like we tied our camel. A guide will help you jog your memory. For example, they will tell you when you've met the Yemeni corner or you're at Hajar al-Aswad, the black stone, how many times you did the sa'i.
Also, they did like collective du'as. So for people who don't know what du'as to make as they're walking around, they did like group du'as. I mean, I don't know if people are fans of that. I personally enjoyed doing my own du'a, but there was that option. I was walking back from the mosque at like 2 a.m. because my dad was like to me, just go at 2 a.m. and touch the black stone, it'll be empty. Everyone was coming to make Umrah at 2 a.m. Like the quiet time to make Umrah was Dhuhr because it was boiling hot. It's like the city just doesn't sleep.
Just so many people making dua from all corners of the world.
It's just crazy seeing so many Muslims and being in a city where every single person is Muslim. Like that to me was crazy because you don't realize how many Muslims there are until you're in that space.
There was one thing that I picked up on afterwards, which is you can only be very close to the Kaaba on the ground floor if you're wearing ihram. So you're wearing
That's true.
the sheets, which is a bit unfortunate because obviously if you don't want to wear it.
I mean, for women, they don't know if you're an ihram or not because you can literally wear whatever you want. So I was able to go all the time, but he got stopped and he had to come back, change into ihram. Even though he wasn't in the state of ihram, he would just do it so he can go to the Kaaba. And I think that's something you just have to do. I completely forgot about that, maybe because it doesn't affect me.
And it was really hard to get close to the Kaaba, as in terms of prayer. Try to get as close as possible, but it'd always be like 10, 15 rows back. You need to be careful because the guards will be blocking different entrances and then kind of like, where am I gonna pray?
Yeah.
It's really, really hectic actually. And if you don't know Arabic, it can get really stressful because they'll tell you commands or they'll hit you and be like, Haji, Haji. You're like, oh, what am I supposed to do? I don't understand.
How do you think your Arabic has changed since that trip?
I don't actually know. I mean, I had a feeling it certainly improved. I don't think it improved that much, but I got more confident improving for my next Umrah so I can actually communicate and not get swamped when I'm trying to queue for food, that was a very difficult story.
Yeah, Saudis don't queue. There's no such thing as a queuing system. It's literally every man for themselves. And when you don't speak that language, it's a struggle. And I was so annoyed. Everyone was trying to come in front of me, so I just picked up Brania and I put her on the counter. And I was like, I'm ordering now. No one else is going to order right now. Because it's like you're ordering and then someone will be like, hey, get me 2 of this. And because they're used to being like, they'll just order, and because they've got that confidence, their order is heard. Whereas your order's like, what? Sorry? What did you say? It's like, you need to have that Saudi confidence. By the end of it, I was just pushing to the front of the queues and being like, I want this, because otherwise you won't survive.
We hope you enjoyed this podcast. We haven't done one for a long time. It's just thoughts and feelings of how our Umrah went. Inshallah, if you have any other questions, let us know. If you like it, I'm going to say you know the drill. Assalamu alaikum.